Hello fellow Unreal Engine developers, and welcome back to this series on creating a tropical island. Today I'm going to show you how to create this floating yacht, and it won't be bobbing around like a toy boat in a bathtub, as a couple of my eagle-eyed viewers noticed in the trailer. And stay tuned for a bonus tip where I'll show you how to scatter objects on the landscape using physics simulations. Let's get straight to it. Welcome back to this series on creating a tropical island. If you need to catch up on where we've got to so far, then follow the playlist in the description below. And today we're going to create a floating boat. So first thing we need to do is get a boat asset, and Epic Marketplace comes to the rescue again with some free assets. So open up the Epic Marketplace. So go into the marketplace and search for Twin Motion Boats Pack 1, and it's completely free. The only thing is it's quite a few boats in here. You'll see it's got everything ranging from a small canoe all the way up to large sort of motorboats, and houseboats, which are quite detailed. We're only going to use a yacht for the floating boat, and maybe a canoe just to put on the beach, just to add some spice. It's quite big though, this pack. It's 3 gigabytes, but we'll once we've added to our project, we'll get rid of everything we don't need. So you don't need to worry about it using up unnecessary space. So click on add to project. You might have to click on free first of all, just to access it, and then once you've downloaded it, click on add to project. It says 426 to 427, but it's working fine for me in UE5, so don't worry about that. So click to add to project. Let's find the one we're working on, island. I have to do show all projects here, so because I was in UE5 it didn't show me the UE5 project, so click show all projects. There's my one here. It says it's not compatible, so just basically choose another version and then do add to project. That's fine. So as I said, it's about 3 gig. So if you're downloading it for the first time, you might need to go make a cup of tea, depending on your internet connection. And that's done now. So we can shut that down, look in our content browser, and now we have this boats folder here with all of these different boats in. As I said, we don't need all of them, so I'm going to keep you need to keep the common folder. We'll keep this canoe because we'll put that on the beach later on, but if you click on everything from the Coast Guard boat down to Yacht 2, so shift click Yacht 2 and then press delete, and we'll delete those 19 folders. Save ourselves a bit of space on disk. Saying there's a reference here. Oh, that's the overview here. Okay, cancel that. You don't really want to do force deletes. They've also got a map here. So if you go into maps, I think it is, or boats common, somewhere here there's a map. Let's search for it. Okay, so it's not in the boats folder. Let's go up to the content level, search for overview. Okay, there it is. So basically this overview, it's in game levels, that's where it is. So go into your content folder. You've got this levels, that's where they've got it in. So first of all, delete the levels folder. And that'll get rid of the map. And that had some references to the boats, which will not be a problem now. So now go back to your boats, click on Coast Guard 01, go down to Yacht 02, shift click, press delete, and now it shouldn't complain that it's being referenced by anything. Okay, and just click delete, confirm. And now if we go into that folder, we now just have the common folder, the canoe, Yacht 3 and Yacht 4. We're only using Yacht 3, but Yacht 3 and Yacht 4 share some textures, so that's why we need to keep both of those. Right, so we've got our boat here, so let's go into Yacht 3, clear any filters here. At the moment it's just a static mesh, so if we put it on the scene, it's not gonna float on the water. In fact, let's go to our island. Let's scoot around to the other side where I've got these couple of rocks sticking out of the sea. You can put it anywhere you want. I'm going to put it sort of mooring here because it's got its own little private beach as well. So if we go back to the yacht here, if we drag it into the scene and put it back a bit. So I'm doing some sort of rotation with the E key. And at the moment it's just going to be a static mesh floating in space. You can put it on the ocean, of course. You can put it there, and that's fine. I mean, if that's if you don't want it bobbing in the ocean, you don't want any buoyancy, that's absolutely fine. And if you go into play mode, it will still stay there, but it will be completely static. What I want to do is I want to have it so it's just gently moving along with the ocean. So in order to do that, I need to convert it into a blueprint and add a buoyancy component. So let's delete this mesh here and go back to our yacht folder here, and then right click and create a new blueprint class, actor, and I'm going to call this BP_yacht, and open it up. I'm going to dock it to the main screen here, and first thing I want to do is add a static mesh to put our boat in. So add static mesh, we'll call this yacht, and in the static mesh on the details on the right hand side, search for yacht, and we'll put the SM Yacht 3 in there. You might have to zoom out a bit to see it because it's quite large. And what we can also do is we can just drag this yacht up to our default scene route, so that it just replaces the route of the blueprint. And at the moment this is exactly the same as our original static mesh, but now we can add a buoyancy component to make it float on the water. So if you do add here and search for buoyancy, you now have various parameters for buoyancy here if you look in this buoyancy data. So we'll deal with that in a moment. Let's just do a quick compile, see if that compiles okay. Yeah, that's all right. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that our yacht has physics applied to it, because buoyancy will only work on objects with physics. So I'm clicked on the yacht. Let's go down to the physics section and click on simulate physics, and in the mass it defaults to 100 kilograms. So we'll set up, I know that's a lot lighter than it would be in real life, but the buoyancy works in strange ways. If you make the mass too large, it'll just sink. So stick with these sort of parameters at the moment, simulate with a mass of 100 kilograms, go to your buoyancy, and the key thing here, there's lots of factors you can change, and we might change them a bit later on, but the key one is these pontoons. So the pontoons are imaginary points on the mesh where they're going to cause the flotation. So at the moment we don't have any pontoons, so if we click plus to add an element, we've created a pontoon in the center point with a radius of 100, and we'll leave that radius of 100 for our pontoons. So we now have a pontoon right in the middle. So let's compile and let's see what that looks like if we put it into the scene. So rather than use, in fact, do a quick Control Shift S to save everything. If we drag this into the scene, so we're not dragging the static mesh yacht, we're dragging the blueprint yacht in, and again move it around, rotate it as you see fit. And what I want to do is I want to put it, you can see where the shadow is, I want to put it just above the water. And now what we can do is we can simulate our physics to see what happens. So in the play mode here, you can, instead of playing in selected viewport, there's a simulate option here. So click on that, and after a moment it goes in, and you see what happens is it floats in the middle, but it's got no stability. It's rotating around the center point. So what we need to do is we actually need to put 4 pontoons spread out evenly along the boat's hull to give it stability. So press stop and the boat will go back to hovering just above the water. Do a quick save, go back to our yacht, and now what we'll do is we will add 4 pontoons in. So we'll add 3 more. So we've now got 4 points. But how do we decide where we want to put them relative to our center point? The easiest way to do this is just to temporarily add something like a cube, and then we can use that as a visual reference. So if we go to add, type cube, and you can see the cube here. And now what we'll do is we'll go to a right view, or actually let's go to a front view. Okay, so you can see it in perspective. So what we can do now is we can, that's the center point where it's been added. What we can do is we can move this cube and we can sort of see roughly where we want to go. So 700 from the center point seems about right, and then 700 here will be near the back. So let's use 700 as our forward and backward reference. And then now let's put it at 700 just so we see where it is. And what we'll do now is we will go to the top view and then see left to right. So something like 150 should do it. So that will put it on the outside of the boat. So 700 and 150 are the dimensions we want for our pontoons. So let's go back to perspective mode. We can delete our cube now, so just press delete to get rid of that. Go to our buoyancy component, and what we'll do now is we'll open up our 4 pontoons. So they're all at the moment 0, 0, 0. And it was 700 on the y-axis and 150 on the x-axis. So what we'll do is we'll put in 150, 150 for the first 2, and then in the x for the last 2, minus 150 and minus 150. And then for the y-axis we'll do 700 for the first one, minus 700 for the second one, 700 for the third one, and minus 700 for that one. Nothing on the z-axis. So we've now got our 4 points spread out in a rectangular fashion around the center. And we will click on compile and save. Go back to our scene. You can press play now because we're in simulation mode. Also, a quick way of doing this, if you look here, is Alt S. So Alt P for play, Alt S for simulate. So do Alt S. And we now have a floating boat. The only thing with this boat at the moment, if I zoom in a bit, is it is really wobbling around from side to side. In fact, it's not very stable at all. And that might be to do with the water settings I've got, but it's also to do with a couple of settings to do with buoyancy. So let's change the water first. Let's come out of this mode. Let's change the water first to make it calmer, and then we will adjust some of the buoyancy settings. So go to your water body ocean here. Open up go to the wave section, wave source, water waves asset, and we will browse to the asset here, waves ocean. And I've actually duplicated it. So if you go to here and just do Control D to duplicate. That way you're not changing the original one. So if you, let me select the other one here, and then we can have a look at some of the settings. So in fact I need to do it up here where I'm setting my Gerstner Waves Ocean. I'll select the one I copied, and then let's just go into the settings for this one. Let's drag it out. Let's put it on one side of the screen. And have a look at some of the settings here. Okay, so what I've done is I've changed the settings here. So I've reduced the number of waves to 5. I've increased the wavelength to 1000. Let me just move this over so you can see all of the settings. So you can pause the video and have a look at the settings I've put in here. I've just made it just a little calmer, the ocean. So if I go into simulate, you can see that that boat is now not nearly rocking as much as it was before. And again, you can play around with these wave settings to suit your requirement. I've got what I think is quite a calm ocean around here. So let's shut that down now, that ocean settings, and let's look again at the boat and see what the other problems are with it. So as I said in the intro, a couple of viewers noticed that it's really bobbing around quite violently, almost looks like a toy boat. So luckily there are a couple of parameters we can change to dampen that movement. So if you come out of simulation mode and you go back to your blueprint yacht, in our buoyancy data, one of the key things here you can do is apply drag forces in water. So if you click on this, it puts drag at the bottom of the boat where it sits in the water, and that'll slow down that movement. So compile and simulate again. And you'll straight away notice that it's not moving quite as fast as it was before, but it still could do with dampening it a bit more. And luckily there's a couple of other parameters we can change. So if we come out of here, come out of simulation mode, go back to our buoyancy section, and you can see here that we have some other parameters. So we've applied the drag forces in water, but you've got these drag coefficients and drag speeds. And I found that if you change this angular drag coefficient from 1 to 5, it again dampens the movement even more in the water. So again, you can play around with those. Compile and save. Let's do a quick save of the island. Go into simulate mode with Alt S. And now we have a very gentle movement of the boat. And I actually noticed when I zoomed in on these on this boat how much detail there was in the textures. If I go into the back of the boat, you can see you've got marquetry on the table here. You've even got internal cabins as well. So you could set up a nice scene here with some wine glasses or even people sitting on the deck. But you can see that the movement of that boat now is much more subtle, just a slight swaying from side to side. So with that done, let's move on to the bonus tip I talked about earlier on in the introduction. So when you place objects in your scene, you can just place them manually, but it's sometimes useful to use physics to simulate them so you can sort of drop them into place and it looks slightly more realistic. So for example, if we go back to our main content boats folder, we had this canoe as well. We kept that so we could just put this canoe and this canoe paddle on the beach. So again, you could just drop them here, sort of bring them, and you can press the end key just to drop them down to the beach level. And similarly with the paddle, I could drag that in. Let's zoom in a bit so we can see it. And again, we can press the end key just to bring that down. And that's actually fine to do that, but it doesn't always sit exactly where you want it. You might want it on its side, and you might want to look as though it just gets difficult to fine tune where you put that in contact. So we can use physics to simulate it as long as the static mesh has a collision on it, collision mesh, and we know the landscape does. We can just drop it into place. But there is a little thing that might catch you out when you're doing this. So let's take these two objects, and I'm just going to move them up slightly, both of them, including the paddle. And let's move them slightly more towards the ocean. I'm going to rotate them around slightly. So somebody sort of left it by the sea edge. And same with this one, just move it down over here. Okay, so say I want to drop these into the sand here. So I can get closer. Right, so let's pick the canoe first, and what I will do is I will go down to the physics section. So if you type physics in search, and just like I did with the yacht, I can do simulate physics, click on mass, and it'll default to 100 kilograms. And if I do Alt S to simulate, the boat falls and lands in a nice sort of pleasing position at an angle. The problem is that as soon as I click escape to come out, it resets the mesh back to it where it was. What I want to do is I want to keep the position where it ended up, and then disable the physics. And the way you do that is by doing the simulation, and then you select the object, right click on it, and you can do keep simulation changes, or you can even just press the K key as a shortcut. So do that, and now when you come out of simulation mode, it stays where it is. Now we can just disable the physics, because we don't want to simulate physics for this anymore. It's an unnecessary performance cost. So let's do the same with the paddle here. So we simulate physics, give it some mass, go into the Alt S to simulate physics, and once it's finished, just select the object and press K to keep it in position. And now it stays in position. Finally, remove the simulate physics. And so that's just a nice way of scattering objects around your scene in a lifelike way without having to place them manually. So that's my bonus tip for this tutorial. So we're done with today's episode. I hope you found it useful. In the next tutorial, we're going to create a wooden boardwalk that goes out from the beach, and we'll also do some final tweaks to the look and feel of the island to just get it looking pristine. So I'll see you in the next one, and bye for now.